What's up, mi gente? It's Anthony Rosa, the community finance coach, aka Mr. Remedy, and you are watching another show on the Roundtable Remedies. And I'm super excited today. Today, we're talking about the power in practicing patience. Yes, you heard it right. And we might be starting off a little bit late with some tough technical difficulties, but even us, we had to practice patience. So we're super excited. And in speaker rotation, I just wanted to ask if our speakers can introduce themselves and tell us what they do. Diana.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully, everyone's having a good day, good night. My name is Diana Payano. I am a realtor, I am an educator, I am a performer, I am a mother. I wear many, many hats. I've been doing real estate for 4 years now, and I have three daughters, 5, 3, and 1 year old, and I've been dancing my whole life. That is my first love. I do teach dance to little kids and adults, and I also work at in the school system. So I do work with special needs kids during the day as well. Again, I wear so many hats, but I'm here to help and provide value to whoever needs it in whichever aspect of their life that they need it in.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much, Anthony, by the way, for bringing me on as well. I'm loving the topic for today, patience. It's very important.
Yeah, practicing patience, very important. And thank you so much for sharing that. And, next up on our speaker, we have Elsa.
Hi, Anthony. Hello, ladies. Thank you for the invitation this evening. My name is Elsa Cabrera. I am a certifying acceptance agent from the IRS. I also prepare taxes professionally for almost 20 years. I am also a notary public and I also do immigration forms. But aside from my career, my passion is my nonprofit. I am the founder and president of Give Thanks, Give Back. And just this past weekend, Danya was able to volunteer at one of my events where we had over 50 families that we provided basic baby care needs. And so that is my true passion. And patience is something that I do not have. And so I am glad that you invited me to talk about that this evening because I cannot wait to hear from the other ladies to see how they're able to put that in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. They say patience is a virtue, and this is definitely a weakness of mine. And being super vulnerable and having this conversation publicly is definitely not the most comfortable. But hey, here
Mhm.
we are standing in the gap, right? And
Absolutely.
anchoring us in tonight on the show, Danya.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Anthony, for inviting me to this important conversation. So, first and foremost, I'm a mother of two children. I'm a school social worker. My passions are education. I'm currently a doctoral student, hoping to
Woo.
graduate
Mhm.
in May 2025 with my doctoral degree in social work, and I hope to better serve my communities, advocate for families, uh, implement, and advocate for better policies that, for the community that social workers service. So, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm on the same boat with you, Elsa. I do not have patience. I've been forced to be patient by the grace of God. So, I'm looking forward to this conversation, how we all handle it.
Oh yeah, I definitely push the conversation with this one, talking about practicing patience. And for those that are watching, Roundtable Remedies was created to inspire, connect, and educate you with real people, real stories, and sometimes we get very vulnerable. And the tips and tricks that we give, we hope that you take them as remedies. And when we're talking about practicing patience, you heard it. We're parents, we run business, we're continuing education, and there are many different facets and nuances in our life that we have to practice patience. So, I have a question for those that are watching. When you think of patience or practicing patience, what do you think? What comes to mind? I would love for you to like, comment, engage, share, tag a friend. And if you're watching live, hashtag live. If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. So, let's jump right in. So, Diana, talking about the power of practicing patience, what comes to mind?
Well, patience is very, very important. It can make or break opportunities when you don't have like the proper patience. It's funny because you ladies say you feel like you have no patience. I feel like sometimes I have too much patience. And believe it or not, that could be a bad thing. waiting too long, getting into this funk where you kind of get still because of your patience, and kind of still being able to like take in like this discomfort, or being in a sticky situation and being able to sit in it when you're supposed to be getting out of it because of your patience is saying, okay, things are going to get better, things are going to get better. And then eventually they don't, but your patience has you sitting there. So I've been trying to take back a little bit of patience. Although patience is still very important to have, I feel like you have to have a balance between patience. Absolutely, a balance is necessary when it comes to patience, and balancing in all aspects of life. Um, Patience, I mean, when you have it with, you could have it, you need to have it with kids, you need to have it with family members, you need to have it with your job and your business and your careers. And I feel like everything that I'm involved in requires an immense amount of patience. Absolutely. But I feel like patience is also like God given. Like for those that are struggling with patience, the way that I find my patience, and I've been trying to be more intelligent and wise with my patience, is with like looking for. I'm a strong believer of God and Jesus and all that. I mean, whoever you believe in, whoever is watching, whether it is the universe, whether it's God or Allah, or whoever your higher power is, I feel like you have to look to that higher power to grant you that patience, to grant you that wisdom to decipher, okay, when it is enough, or when you need to still be sitting in your situation waiting for your blessing or waiting for that opportunity to hit. So patience, for me, is God given. Sometimes things get hard and you have to still sit and wait, and you find that strength to go through those tough times, uh, through the higher power. That's how I feel. I find it through my higher power, and I'm just trying to balancing it now with not having too much but not having too little.
Right, right. So let me ask you, how do you channel that patience? Right, you shared with us you're a parent, you're in dance, you work in the school district with children with special needs. Where do you pull it from in those moments where a lot of us, we want instant gratification, right? And in the world that we live in, we expect things to happen fast, right? So how do you just kind of bunker down and not overreact in moments where it might cause you to overreact?
I think of the end result. Where am I trying to get to? um, with my kids, I'm trying to get them to be obedient, or finish their food or shower. So I say patience instead of versus like getting agitated, which also they feed off of like your energy. So if you're agitated, they get agitated, and then you're never working to that greater goal of finishing food or getting in the shower. So staying patient, um, just looking to the goal, is how I find myself staying patient. And then when it gets too much, I'm like, Lord, just grant me the patience that I need right now to stay here and make it to the end. When in business too, when I'm dealing with, sellers and buyers, especially buyers, because sometimes it's just not the right time for them to buy and they express that. So I have to be patient and follow up and make sure I stay fresh in their minds. I have to be wise with this, with the times that I follow up with there. So how much patience do I need to have to follow up to stay fresh in their minds without becoming annoying? Because you can follow up to a point where you're like, oh my God, this lady's overwhelming. I don't want to work with her. She's annoying now. So being wise with the amount of patience that you have, like in business, also helps. Or if you have too much patience, you just might miss out on something as well. And then with dance and teaching kids, everybody learns at a different pace. So I need to make sure that I'm staying and I'm teaching, pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, and waiting to the moment that it finally clicks whatever I'm trying to teach them. So it all plays out in every aspect of my life, patience. And I feel like I couldn't be in any of these fields if I didn't have patience, and I wouldn't be as successful as I am in each and every field if I didn't have the patience that I have. Patience that I
Right.
have. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. For those that struggle with patience, I know that you referenced, praying to your higher power. What would you kind of say to someone that is struggling with patience and they don't know what to do?
I would say just breathe. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. well, you're always going to make it to the goal, even if you're taking steps forward, even if they're small steps. There's still steps, there's still steps in the right direction. So little by little, you will get to wherever you need to go to. And sometimes we may find ourselves getting anxious, because I feel like anxiety is like the opposite and the enemy of patience. Don't feed into that. Make sure you're breathing, staying
Mm,
focused. If you need to, step back and kind of like reset and regroup, and just kind of like reorganize your plan, do that. Do whatever you have to do to get to that end goal, using that patience to get you there. And if
right.
it's something that's worth it, you're gonna get there. If you're
And
not
we're
really into
talking
it, yeah, if you're not really into it, then you probably won't.
we're talking about the practice of the power in practicing
Right.
patience. And I
Yes.
love that you pointed that out. Danya, I saw you nodding your head. What are some of your thoughts? What were you thinking?
Going back to the anxiety. Full disclosure, I'm someone that struggles with anxiety and controlling that. So I think that's very important. Staying grounded when you're having these anxious thoughts, and which will lead to losing your patience, and just having going into that bigger thought, or like the thinking about the end goal of what you're trying to achieve, and saying to yourself, me getting anxious and getting all worked up for a positive end goal is not going to get me to my end goal. So I totally agree with you, Diana, how everything is a ripple effect, and it's a work in progress, and just um, staying grounded on that. And of
Right.
course, for me, having a supportive group of friends. That I could call on to when I'm having my my DM moments. That one of my closest friends that I always call, um, to help me stay grounded. And I think that's important, having that support system, just keeping and the prize. As cliche as that sounds, but it's true.
Mm.
No, for real. You have to have your accountability partner. So for those that are watching, who is your go-to person when you're having a moment? Why don't you take a moment, tag them right now, and just say thank you. Thank you for being the one that I could rely on when I'm going through a tough time. And I have a question for those that are watching. Is there a difference between anxiety and patience? If you're watching right now, we would love for you to like, comment, and engage with us. What do you think is the difference between anxiety and patience? Take a moment and post. Elsa, I saw you nodding your head when Diana was kind of talking a little bit about, you know, how she handles patience. What were your thoughts when she was talking?
So I look at patience as a journey, not as a destination. Where in between my journey, I am going through the struggles, I am growing over time. I think that I struggle more with patience now because of my kids. I have three kids, and they range from 16, 6 going on 13, and then a 4-year old. And so it's a lot, just like Diana, I wear many hats, and I take a lot of things very personal. And so I think social media has also something to do with me wanting to get instant gratification and get results right away. I don't have patience. Like when I submit an application for a client, I want to know what the result is going to be. And I'm like, Elsa, you need to like slow your roll. You need to just let time pass. You need to just let God do what he's supposed to do for you. And Dania was mentioning that she has a support system. For me, my go-to person is God. I am very deep in my faith. And I know that when I pray for him, I ask for specific things. And one of the things that I pray for every night is patience. I'm like, God, please just provide it for me, because I know that he's opening doors for me. But I also have a group of female friends that we get together at least once a week and have coffee. And they also keep me grounded. And they remind me, hey, Elsa, you've gone this far. Imagine what you can do if you just have a little bit more patience. And so that's why I keep nodding my head. I'm like, yes, Danya, I get it. I have that support system as one. And I think it's very important to find your people. You need to find those that they have goals aligned with yours, because they will keep you focused, they'll keep you balanced, and they are definitely your support system.
Absolutely. Hashtag accountability partner. So, Diana, I really appreciate you getting this conversation started for us. Don't go anywhere, because at the end we'll have our final thoughts segment. But definitely stick around and stay in the conversation, right? So,
Absolutely.
Elsa, We're talking about the power in practicing patience, and you and I, we had a nice conversation about this as we were building up to the show. So,
Yeah.
when you think of practicing patience, what comes to mind?
Ay, ay, ay. I think also like Danya, it's kind of like anxiety for me. In my line of work, I work with people who basically they put their lives in my hands, their finances, their immigration status, and so I get anxious to see what the end result is going to be, and then I remind myself, I have the capability of doing what I'm supposed to do to make sure that the end result is going to be positive. But through that process, you're like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And so Diana was saying, I think about what's going to be the end result, and that makes me nervous, and so it makes me like anxious, and so I doubt myself sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? I got to step back. I got to
Mm,
breathe. I got to pray. I got to go, it's one of those moments, but definitely it's something that I think we all struggle, and it's something that like I said before, if you don't have your support system, it's something that it's hard to do on your own, to get better
yes,
on your own.
right. We can't do this life journey on our own,
Never,
and I think that
never.
for me, right? I have five children, right, from 9 months to 11.
Yikes.
I have three girls and two boys, and being patient with them.
Hmm.
As a finance coach, like just being patient with people, right, and just not talking over them and just racing to try to get to your point. And I think that sometimes when I'm going through those moments, I'm speaking to my accountability partners, and they put me in place. As like, hey, and you
Mhm.
should do this, you should do that, or they teach you grounding or boundaries, setting boundaries. I had a
Yeah.
conversation with my mom, and she's like, "What are boundaries? Get boundaries." It's like, well, I'm trying to protect my peace, mom. I'm trying to be patient, and you're
Mm,
taking things out of me, and I don't know
yeah.
if I'm the only one that goes through that, but I figured that is important, right? Practicing patience is not the easiest thing. So, Elsa, talk to me about a time where you should have been more patient for an opportunity.
Um, okay, so recently, and this is fresh in my mind, I've been very active in my church, and I felt that I needed to be more hands on, that I needed to let them know what I can help them. And not that I needed to let them know that I can help them. I wanted them to know like my capability, how I can use my skills, my talent to better the community. And so I was praying, I was like, God, show me how I can be more involved in church. And I was getting very impatient. And then one day I get an email just kind of saying, hey, also, do you want to volunteer in the cafe? And I was like, sure, I'll do that. So I've been doing that for the last 2 months every Sunday, and I get a call from the pastor, and he says, "Hey, Elsie, I've been noticing that you're very involved in church. You're very charismatic.
So
You're very
cool.
nice to people." He's like, "Would you like to take this a little further?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So what do you want me to do?" And so he offered me to be part of this program where they prepare you to be more deep in your faith. They give you a spiritual mentor, which is something that I need. And you're
Mm,
able to be more involved in church. Like you could shadow the pastor, you can do other things within church, and it's going to be like a year-long process that I'm going to go through. And I was being so impatient because I wanted to be noticed in church. I wanted to be more involved, and look how I didn't have to do much. They came to me, in other words.
wow,
And
look
so
at
I'm like,
that.
okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I wonder who else here is waiting for an opportunity and they're impatient, but it's not in your hands, it's not in your time, it's in God's time, right? We say.
Absolutely.
Diane,
Mhm.
I see you kind of chomping at the bit. What are some of your thoughts?
No, I just love it how, like, you said you don't really have to do much. All you have to do and ask and you shall receive. Like that's what the
Mhm.
word says. And I just love when things unfold in that way. And those are like little aha moments that like God is paying attention. Like sometimes you don't have to visibly see him or audibly hear him. It's just the things that happen in your lives that will tell you, hey, this is from God because you asked for it and you have received it. And I'm in a place for myself right now where I'm going through a transition, looking for new opportunities, and I'm in a state where I'm just like, I have to be patient. And I'm just, just hearing that happened to you reminded me that, hey, it's not my timing, it's God's timing.
Absolutely.
Right, right. So, we have some really great remedies that we're talking about right now, and we're talking about practicing patience. And it's definitely my weakness. It's not my strong suit. With my pastor, speaking with Pastor Ozzy, I talk to him about my situations, and I'll say, I pray for patience, and he goes, Anthony, pray for strength.
Hmm.
Right? So in those moments where I'm impatient or I want to overreact, right? He's like, pray for strength. And for me, what does that mean? It's not casting that second stone, not getting out of character, not yelling at the person across the street or the person that just cut me off in the road, being patient, right? And it's definitely something that I try to practice every single day. Danya, I see you nodding your head. What are you thinking?
It's just what everybody's saying about God's timing, right? And I think that's so important because I'll speak a little bit about my story. I was a former elected school board member, so being in the public eye, that was like, it was a very it was a very difficult time for me because it put me in a place where I had to be vulnerable and
Hmm.
have full exposure of the person that I am, being around people who I thought were my friends, who had my back, and then later to learn they were never really my friend. Politics, there are no friends. Politics
Mm,
at the end of the day is to get the business done and whatever you got to do, whether it's good or bad, right? So, when I lost my reelection last year, November, it hurt me a lot. I struggled a lot with that loss because I was like, wow, like, why did this happen to me? I did everything that I needed to do to prove to my community that I'm the right person, that I'm still the right, person, the right school board member to still push the district forward and do what's right for our community and more importantly, our students.
mm,
And, I had to come to terms. God didn't want this for me. God actually, and I'm so thankful and I praise him every day because
Amen.
that moment, for a couple of months, I will say, like, it
mm,
took me a while to realize that, what God wants for us is sometimes is not what we want. I wanted to see so bad. Um, and I came to terms, that God wanted something better. And a lot of people would tell me that, God has something bigger for you. You'll see God takes things away from you, but he will give you something better. And it's true. Like, I'm in my happiest moment in my life. I've learned to accept what's been taken away and accept all the new blessings that are in my life. So in that process of acceptance and accepting my fate and accepting that loss, I learned to see that loss as a big win in my life. Um, and I'm grateful for it. I don't lament or regret anything that I've experienced in my past life, and that has taught me the importance of patience. Because if I wasn't patient to understand what my path is going to lead to today and what I have today, I don't know where would I be. Like, I probably would have still been sulking, miserable, wanted to have a vengeance to everyone because I wanted to do that. I wanted vengeance. I wanted to get back. I was always about, oh, you do this to me, I'm gonna get you back. Like, that's not,
Hmm.
and I've learned to let that go, and most important, the validation aspect. Being
mm.
a public figure, you're always looking for that validation from everybody, and I learned that as well, that people's opinions about me, and people are gonna have it, and they're still having it, and they're gonna continue having it, and it's gonna come from everywhere. It doesn't validate the person that I am. The
Right.
only validation that matters is the one that comes from myself and my children, right? and the people that care about me, because I know that those opinions of people who truly care about me, my circle, they're coming from a genuine and honest place, and they only want what's best for me.
Right. You can't take feedback from everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they say hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I really applaud you for saying that, right? Because as a public figure, you know, it sounded like you really loved what you were doing, and for whatever reason that to be taken away from you, you didn't at that moment you didn't understand why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I could relate myself because I was a varsity football coach and it was taken away from me. And I'm doing good for the community, and I think that the community leaders are there to really advocate for the community. But when you really start to meet people and know what their intentions are, we just leave that there, right? And so at that moment, I really wasn't happy with that decision. And, I had to be patient. And now it's been about 45 days, a little over a month. And there's so many things that have just been opening doors for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I was coaching and if I was spending those hours and I was on the field and I was in the weight room and I was breaking down video and I was doing this and I was doing that, maybe what's happening to me right now wouldn't be happening. So, like you said, Danya, sometimes God takes something away from you to give you something much bigger. And there's something called addition by subtraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take that backwards to go a few forward.
Yep.
Also, you were kind of smiling there. What were you thinking?
I've been smiling the whole time that Danya's been speaking because I lived that with her. Like I was rooting for her for these elections and I was like, she's going to do it. She's going to do it. It didn't happen. And she has, and I probably don't even know half of the things that she's accomplished, but she has accomplished much more than what she would have accomplished if she would have had that seat. We're
Yeah.
not going to talk about politics, but I'm only mentioning that because of Danya's testimony right now. I was
Yeah.
rooting for her and I was like, you know what? God has better plans for her. And here she is in a much better place. And I love that for her.
Thank you.
Amen. Yeah.
I truly do.
So Danya, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of continue to elaborate on that. And, you kind of just started the conversation really great, right? I think that is really important for us to be real and
Yeah.
vulnerable. And I
Yeah.
learned that being vulnerable is a superpower. These are
Absolutely.
conversations a lot of people and adults are thinking about, but we're just not having.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a lot of times we have that innocent bystander approach. We'll just wait for someone else to fix that problem.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we doing about it ourselves?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you talked about validation because I don't need anybody to validate me, right? I know what I do. I know my goals. I know my integrity. I know my loyalty. Do you, for those that are watching? I challenge you to unpack and unfold this question right now. How do you feel when you're thinking about patience? Are you patient? Do you struggle with patience? What blessing are you waiting for? So, Danya, we're being real. We could be real, right? You mentioned some challenges about patience.
Yeah.
So, being in the role that you're in, how do you protect your peace?
A lot of self-care. And finding self-care in the right ways, because I'm not gonna talk about it too much tonight because I'm not ready to have an open discussion. But Anthony, we talked about it earlier. My coping mechanisms were not in check, right? And I had to check myself of how I was, what was I using to relieve my grief, to relieve the pain that I was going through. I was using outlets that were not benefiting me. And I hurt people on the way because I was a hurt person. And I'm still a hurt person. I'm still going through that process of healing myself, going through that
Mm-hmm.
journey. And I found peace in God. I've always grew up in church. I've always had my faith. I just never congregated in community because of past experiences, and I never found a church that I felt welcomed or I felt at peace, and I found that at Historic Calvary Baptist Church. It's Dr. Randall Lassiter. um and that community has welcomed me, um has embraced me, and I'm able to be myself and able to learn about God. So that has reinforced the peace that I've been looking for, right? And prayer, I've always prayed. So that's been my other way of coping. Prayer. I truly
Mm.
believe in the power that prayer has. You don't have to kneel down. Sometimes I don't kneel down. Sometimes I'm just sitting down and I'll just be like, I'll start praying, for clarity, for vision, um, or for next steps, or just to give me peace, or thanking him for, for having a good day. So, and it took certain situations to get me to the point, I lost my mom 3 years ago. So, um, it wasn't until this year, maybe a few months ago, that I didn't grieve my mom the right way. And you know, and don't get me wrong, there is no appropriate way to grieve the loss of a parent or a loved one, but you need the time to grieve, and I didn't give myself that time to grieve, because as soon as my mom passed away, 2 weeks later, I was in a board meeting discussing what's going to happen with our next superintendent. Like, I immersed myself in work. I like, when I tell you I immersed myself in work,
Mm.
I was like work overload, that that all caught up, because I didn't want to deal with the pain. I was always, as a Latina woman, we're taught emotions are weakness, right? And that's something, as a social worker, I'm trying to change in our community. Showing emotion, crying, thoughts of depression, anxiety, that's all weakness, not accepted. Mental health, like, mental health does not exist in the Latino community. Now it's starting to change, but back then, like, even like with my mom, it was always like, depression, that doesn't exist. Like, what are you talking about? Just
Hmm.
suck it up and be
Ah,
a
mijito, man up. Like
yeah,
that's
the strong woman that you are. Keep it moving.
that's
That's
true.
like, you don't got time to be soaking and crying about this and that. And that affected me in the long term, because I didn't know how to deal with these emotions. I just bottled it up. But then when I would deal with it, I would explode. I would DM, like my good friend Dr. Brault says. Like, I DM, like, it's explosive, it's toxic, and I hurt people along the way. And these are things that I had to reflect on myself, that, hey, I need to change. So, um so that's how I deal, with finding my peace. And it's a work in progress. I go to therapy as well. Everyone needs therapy. I don't care if you
Everyone needs
went through
therapy.
trauma or you didn't.
I've gone to therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, we all need therapy, because we need someone to talk to. Because sometimes we might think, oh, this is not traumatic, but it might be something that's bothering you. And sometimes certain thoughts or situations affect you in a certain way. Well, understand, why is it affecting you? Because it could be a deeper thing. And it's healthy to go to therapy. I think that's self-care.
Right.
um so I committed to that, going to therapy every week, and processing things, and how my day was, and why am I doing these things, and my coping mechanisms, and how to better improve myself, right? So all of these processes, all these things, and that's why I say, like, and just like what Elsa said earlier, like, if I would have won that seat, right, I don't think I would have. I don't think I would be the Danya that I am today, because I would have been more immersed in the toxicity that I was in. I had a great opportunity to be in DC this summer to write policy. And if I was a board member, I would have not been able to have that opportunity, because I
Wow.
was
See.
so
Mhm.
immersed in school board business, that's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about anything else. I mean, aside from my studies, but nothing else mattered to me. I was
Mhm.
it was just a toxic relationship. People say, "Oh, do you miss?" I do, but I don't. I
Mhm.
miss, helping people and advocating, but it's just everything else that comes with it. I don't. And don't get me wrong, I still love politics. I think politics is a beautiful thing when you use it, and you use it for the right motives, and you're surrounded by positive people that support. your values in the political world, because you can get so lost because there's
Mm.
so much toxicity in it. And if you could get trapped really quickly. That doesn't mean that in the future I might not get involved again in politics. I'm not saying that. Maybe not as an elected official, but in a different capacity. And I do that now, as a social worker advocating. I work with special education families, so I still, I advocate on their rights and educating them. I go through the process and, learning patience. I learned a lot of patience working with special education families, sitting down and going through the IEPs and explaining every single detail, especially to my,
Mm.
you know, how hard it is to translate special education language in Spanish. It's hard, and
Wow.
it's taken skill for years to attain that, and that's something I'm very proud of. And so, the work that I do has helped me to work on myself to become a better person, because at the end of the day, the things that I do does not only benefit me, but it benefits my children, my family, my friends, and the community that I serve.
Well, I want to say thank you for that. I think we heard you. We hear the passion. We hear the pain, but we hear the chrysalis, right? That um, that cocoon to butterfly, right? When we're going through this,
Yeah.
and when you see that metamorphosis change in that cocoon, right? It's like fighting in there, and you're like, "What's going on?" And but you can't poke a hole, because if you poke a hole in that cocoon, you can kill the butterfly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are in this chrysalis stage. And
Mhm.
I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for encouraging us. Thank you for allowing us a little bit more into your life, and sharing some of the challenges with coping methods and the loss of your mom and how you were dealing with the transition in work. Because at that moment, a lot of us, right? I didn't grieve when I lost my father, right? In fact, I was probably more had anger and hatred towards him. And then later on in my life, you know, I forgave him. And so it's one of those things that, like with family, especially being patient with family, but not having that family resentment, right?
Yeah.
Because that being patient with one another, especially with family,
Yeah.
and so I just wanted to share that I really appreciate, Danya, you just sharing that. Diana, I know that you have some experience with the special education realm as well. What were you thinking about when Danya was talking about that?
I can relate because I have had to sit and translate through IEP meetings, and it is very difficult. There's a lot of things to explain. I honestly don't know how these parents are able to get through the days, because having a special needs kids is having a typical kid in general is hard. Now let's add some special needs on top of it. It's like, whoa. These are like I look at these parents and I'm like, you are amazing. You are an amazing human being, because you are sitting here, especially to the really involved ones that come to every IEP meeting, that bring, every all the needs that the kid needs to school. And I'm just like, wow, you are a superhero, raising your kid the right way, being here at all the IEP meetings, providing him or her with everything that they need. And it takes a lot of patience. I feel like that they have to have a lot of patience to be able to raise a child, all the way from birth to adulthood and even beyond, because a typical kid, you're letting them go at 18, but not these children. They're not there. You're still with them until basically you can't anymore for them, because
Right.
you're old, and they're way bigger than you, much stronger than you. So it takes a lot of patience, because the light at the end of the tunnel looks different for those people that work with or have special needs children. um, yeah, but a lot of the great things are I wanted to piggyback off a lot of other things that Danya and Anthony said, as far as like patience and transition, especially when you ask, like, when you ask for patience and you were told to ask for strength. There's a thing about asking for things, for like patience. If you ask for patience, you're probably gonna get to get when if you ask for patience, you're probably going to get a whole bunch of situations that you're going to have to practice your patience into strength.
Yes.
So if you ask for patience, you're probably going to get a lot of people cutting you off on the road to see if you're ready to be patient.
Thank you.
A lot of things that you're asking for that you want, you have to be prepared for too. So then you're going to go into this training time, a training season in life to see if you're really worthy of whatever you're asking for. So, there's that
Wow.
chrysalis stage,
Yeah.
Be
where you're just
careful what you
And
ask.
to
Wow.
add,
how
yes.
worthy you are of it.
What were you gonna say, Daniel?
Oh, when you were talking about forgiveness, I think that's so important as well because that attributes to patience, right? Um, Forgiveness in the sense, forgiveness is not for our forgiveness is not for the other person, but for ourselves. And I've had to do that a lot. I've had to forgive people for the things, that they do politically, professionally, because it's the only way for you to let go. Because you can't expect someone to ask for your apology, right? Or to say, "Hey, I'm sorry that I did this," or can you or ask for your forgiveness. It's sometimes it'll never happen. So just giving them that forgiveness, I think, will lead to the patience and redemption that you need. And I think that's so important. And when you brought that up, that, forgiveness aspect about your father and all that and your family, it brought that out to me. So I think that's, it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So
It's
I
part of
uh I
healing.
wanted to I want to say thank you so far to Rosa and Liz and Dr. Baral. You guys have been watching us and engaging with us. Giralina, I just want to say thank you so much. Rosa said, that's why I don't ask for patience. I learned really quick with 3 kids to just ask for strength, guidance, knowledge, and understanding. Yeah, we're right there with you, Rosa. You know, and one of the things that I do want to add, I want to give 3 recommendations on how to become more patient. Is that okay?
Hmm.
So
Sure.
the first one is recognize triggers. Okay. So I need you guys to identify situations, people, even tasks that you typically do that make you impatient. I want you to recognize them and understand your triggers is the first step to managing them. The second, practice mindfulness. I think today we talked about breathing, we talked about grounding, stay present in the moment, and use these mindful techniques like deep breathing, meditation, because they can help you get calm and refocus and really reduce feelings of impatience. And lastly, set realistic expectations. Adjust your expectations about how quickly things should happen. And this is definitely something that I struggle with. Understand that not everything will go according to your timeline, and that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
you know and so I know that Elsa, she'll come back on screen in a minute, but right now we're going to the final thoughts segment of the show. Okay, this is where we can talk a little bit, wrap up our thoughts, and we're talking about practicing patience, or the power of practicing patience. So, Diana, what are your final thoughts?
Um, well, one thought is still like lingering in my head when you talked about having patience with family. I feel like when you have children, your family likes to kind of tell you how to raise your kid. That happens a lot. And sometimes we just got to agree to disagree. Not only in that doesn't come only with family, but with other people. We have to understand and give grace to everybody and understand that we are all different people with all different mindsets, all different upbringings, different traumas, different feelings and different times of our lives. So we're also not going to be thinking the same way that they are. We're not going to do things the way that they do it. And we have to just agree to disagree, and having patience with someone because they're doing something differently is also, you know, practicing patience and essentially bringing peace, you know. So I think patience and peace come in to tie together. If you have patience, you have peace. And you have to have patience with everything around you, everyone around you, with yourself, in all aspects of your lives and all the people that come to you.
Absolutely. Protect your peace. Protect your peace.
Yeah,
Daniel,
patience is like a shield.
it's true, you know, and I agree. Elsa, we're
Sorry.
it's okay. We're rounding third base and we're going over final thoughts. What are some of your final thoughts on the power of practicing patience?
So for me, the way that I've practiced patience or tried to practice patience is removing myself from toxic situations and toxic people. I noticed that when I was around certain people, um, their negativity was making me impatient. I was dealing with something that had nothing to do with me indirectly, and it was making me a little loony. And so that's why I've made so many changes recently in my life where I decided to move my office to a different city, decided to go back to church,
Mhm.
where I had been at a church for a long time. And also, I decided to reevaluate my circle of friends.
Mm,
I think that the people that you surround yourself with, they could either make you or break you. And I've learned that not everyone is your friend, and that those who are with you through your most darkest and toughest moments, those are your those are your cheerleaders, those are your people. And so I know that I've learned to be more patient by removing myself from certain situations and certain people. That has been my trick, I would say.
right. I love that. And there's power there. There's power in making decision. And no is a full sentence.
Absolutely.
So we need
Yeah.
to practice saying no, thank you more often, right?
I
Yeah.
practiced that two-letter word a lot this year, and I have felt zero guilt for it. And I'm a much happier person and I'm a much better place.
Set your boundaries. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Danya, final thoughts on the power of practicing patience.
Trust the process. As ugly as it may look like, as hard as it may look like, as stressful as it may be, trust the process because everything happens for a reason. And if you have a faith, you know God put you there for a reason. And He doesn't give you more than you are able to handle. And you might feel overwhelmed and like, oh my God, like I'm gonna die, like how I feel sometimes. I know that, He gave me this, He put me on this path, He had me experience this hardship for a reason. And that's to give a testimony in the future to help other people, help other women that may be experiencing the path that I've gone through. So trust the process. I trust the process that I am 100%, and I know things will only get better and better. And if you hold on to that, trust and believe, it will get better.
Amen.
It might get worse before
It
it
might
gets better,
get
but it'll get better.
That's right.
They
yes,
say God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. So if you're going through it, it's because you were anointed to go higher in life.
Amen.
Okay.
I love
amen.
that. I love that. Do you all feel like you got everything out? Is there anything kind of just chomping at the bit that anyone wants to kind of get off their chest?
Hmm.
Just be
Well,
patient, everybody,
we
please.
said a lot here, right? Keep it real. Be real to yourself. There was a bunch of remedies that we just went over, and at the end of every show, we always like to finish with a quote. Quote of the show: "Patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting."
Hmm.
Go in grace, go in peace. You saw it here, folks. This is Anthony Rosa, Mr. Remedy. You are watching another show on the Round Table Remedies. Thank you, speakers. Thank you for those that were watching. Let's see you soon.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.